Hello and welcome back to Democracy, everybody. Welcome back to Helldivers. Today we're going to be taking a look at the turrets and we're going to be ranking all of them. Now, I haven't ever really talked about the turrets, and that's because I don't really use the turrets very much. So kind of keep that in mind with these rankings because I don't use these super frequently. They're not really my favorite type of stratagems. Our very first turret is the machine gun turret. This one you can get as low as level 1, only costs you 1500 credits, and it is a 5-button input. This one also has a very short cooldown at only 90 seconds. Once you have all the upgrades to your ship, then this drops down to like 77 seconds. It comes in really fast, and this is just a machine gun, pretty standard turret. It shoots kind of slow enough for you not to die immediately if it does shoot you, which is kind of nice. That is a problem with the turrets, is that they might cause a decent amount of friendly fire. This one does have medium armor pen on it, which is pretty good too. It does deal with most enemies fairly well. Can't kill big enemies all that quickly unless it's allowed to hit the weak spots, so it's not going to be super useful against like Titans, Chargers, things like that. For an overall rating for the machine gun sentry, I would say this one's probably A tier versus the bugs and the bots, and then probably S tier versus the squids. This one's actually pretty solid most of the time. Even on like bot missions where you'd think this wouldn't be all that useful, since it comes up so often, you can really just throw it and take care of all the medium bots. You don't really need to have it be attacking the big bots. The turrets can get destroyed fairly easy from the bots sometimes because they can just get focused down, but that's not such a big deal. Kind of the same thing with the bugs. The bugs can swarm the turrets pretty fast, so you want to be setting these at safe distances. But the machine gun sentry still works pretty well, and since it comes up so often, that's not such a big deal that it gets destroyed. You can always call in another one. And then against the squid, since this one has medium armor pen, it's actually really good against pretty much all of them. Even against like the flesh mobs. Flesh mobs are kind of the only real problem with it, assuming that a harvester doesn't use like the death laser on it, or like a stingray doesn't fly over it, or anything else blows it up. This can clear out like the vote list really quickly. It can kill flesh mobs, and it can kill overseers really well. It can even kill harvesters, which is kind of cool. And I guess it could kill stingrays if they're in that area long enough. I've never seen it do that, but it should be able to do it since it has medium armor pen. The machine gun sentry is actually a very solid option if you want to take it, and a pretty safe option for a turret. Our next turret is the Gatling sentry. This one is available at level 5. This one will cost you 4,000 requisition slips. This one's a 4-button input, and this one has a 150-second cooldown on it. The Gatling sentry is very similar to the machine gun sentry. It does kind of the same job, just it has more DPS on it, but for the exchange of having a longer cooldown on it, which makes it so I don't really like this one as much as the machine gun turret. I think it's still pretty decent though. For an overall rating for the Gatling sentry, I would say this one's probably A tier versus the bugs and versus the squids, and then B tier versus the bots. I don't really like this one as much versus the bots. It can mow down the medium ones pretty fast, but if it gets shot at from a distance, it can get broken, and that's more disappointing than if like your machine gun turret got blown up, because that one's going to come up way faster than this one, so you can just potentially have more of those. The Gatling sentry is still a fine sentry gun though. It's really good for cleaning up small things and medium things. Once again, it can't really hurt any of the big stuff unless it's allowed to attack the weak spots, which the turrets almost never do, so it's still potentially going to get destroyed by things like hulks or tanks or chargers. Chargers can be kind of a problem with turrets in general because they can just slam into them and kill them. Up next we have the flame turret. This one is pretty cool too. This one comes from the Urban Legends War Bond. This one will cost you 85 medals. It has a 100-second cooldown on it, and it is a 6-button input. For a rating for the flame turret, I would say this one's S tier versus the bugs, D tier versus the bots, and then A tier versus the squids. This one is highly specialized to be good on the bot front, and it's actually pretty good on the squid front too, since a lot of the things on both those fronts do not like fire. This one is basically just a bigger flamethrower. I think it has a little bit longer reach than the standard flamethrower, at least a special weapon one. I could be wrong about that because you don't really see that from the side too often unless somebody else is using it, but I think it has a little bit longer reach. Really good damage per second. It has a very short cooldown, so you can call it in very often. Not quite as often as like the machine gun turret, but it's the second fastest to call in, so that's pretty cool. Against the bugs, since this one comes up so often, it's really good at killing the medium and the small bugs. It can even kill the big bugs. Like, you can kill Titans and you can kill Chargers with this. It's not always super consistent at doing that though. Like, if a Charger rushes it, it can break it before it can kill it. Same thing goes with like a Titan. If it stomps over the top of it, or if it starts spitting on it, then it can kill it before it really gets to do a lot of damage. But if nothing is focusing the turret, then it is very, very good. On the bot front, this one is just not that great overall. I would say it's probably the weakest turret overall on the bot front, just because it is still good against like berserkers, and it can be decent against medium bots, but so often the bots will just shoot this to death and that's the end of it. Even against like hulks that will usually try to rush it, If they just get close to it, they'll just smash it before the flamethrower can really kill them. I find it just kind of awkward against the bots. Generally want longer range turrets for it, and this one has the shortest range out of any of the turrets. And then against the squids, this one is still pretty good. So long as it doesn't get rushed immediately by flesh mobs, then it's usually okay, or destroyed by stingrays or something. Clears up the voteless hordes really well, clears up overseers, and it can kill the flesh mobs really fast too. Like, it is pretty solid. Next is our newest turret with the laser turret. This one comes in the control group war bond, and this one is kind of just okay in my opinion. I've never really had strong feelings about this one. I felt like it was a fine turret against basically everything. This one costs 85 metals, has a 150-second cooldown, and is a 6-button input. This one I would probably say is B tier versus the bugs and the squids, and then A tier versus the bots. This one does excel a little bit more against the bots since it does have long range. It does have fire on it like most of the laser weapons do, so you can burn things. It can also overheat, and it can blow itself up if it gets too overheated, which is awkward. Especially on like the bug and squid front, when generally there's a lot of enemies that are usually rushing to it, and it can only target down one enemy at a time. It can still kill all of like the small and the medium bugs and squids pretty fast. Big ones, not so much. Like flesh mobs can rush this and just beat it to death. Same thing goes with like chargers. And on the bot front, this still can get shot to death by quite a few different things, but generally it works out fairly well against them, and usually it's not really in danger of like overheating. Most of the time it honestly doesn't overheat anyway, so that's not a huge deal for this, unless it's just been running for a very long time like you're currently doing a main objective, in which case then maybe it's not necessarily the best turret overall. Then we have the rocket turret. This one is really good. This one's actually a very solid turret, and probably one of my favorites, and the one that I probably take the most often, really. So this one is available at level 15, will cost you 7,500 requisition slips, has a 150-second cooldown, and is a 5-button input. This one just shoots out rockets and does a lot of damage. It can kind of solo just about anything in the game, funny enough, if it's allowed to. Like even factory striders, this can potentially win a 1v1 with, which is kind of funny. It does have backblast on it, so be sure to stay clear of this, otherwise it will knock you down. And it also has the chance of just instantly killing you, unless you have like fortified armor, then you're usually fine from getting hit by this. For an overall rating for the rocket turret, I would say this one's S tier versus the bugs and S tier versus the bots, and then probably A tier versus the squids. It's still pretty strong against the squids, but you usually don't really need it against the squids. It's still a little bit awkward when the flesh mobs try to rush this, because they do have a lot of HP. They can actually tank through quite a bit of this. That's kind of the only problem. This can kill the voteless, and it can kill overseers really well, and it can also kill harvesters and even the ships coming in very well. Against bots, this one is fantastic at knocking out basically everything. Like, there's nothing really on the bot front that can kill this effectively, unless it's like the main gun on the factory strider, or if it's like the main cannon on a tank or something, then it can blow it up. But this can also kill them, and it has a pretty short cooldown. On the bug front, that's very similar. This can kill titans and chargers very quickly. It can also kill like impalers very fast. So that's really good. It's just a very solid turret overall. I really like this one. Then our next turret is the Autocannon turret. This one is available at level 13, costs you 6,000 requisition slips, has a 150-second cooldown, and is a 6-button input. This one is just pretty solid. I would say this one's just good across the board, so I'd say A tier versus everything. This one can clear up the bugs pretty fast, and it can really hurt any of the bugs. It can also kind of do the same thing for any of the bots. This can shoot down just about anything. And then against the squids, it's a very similar situation where this can knock out basically everything. The only kind of downside is that this one does have somewhat of a slow rate of fire, and if it ends up getting flanked, it can get broken pretty fast. But assuming that this is in a safe spot and it can just keep hammering away at stuff, it's usually a pretty good turret. Our next turret is the Mortar EMS, and we also have the regular Mortar, and we might as well talk about both these at the same time, since usually they're kind of good for the same sort of job, or at least a similar job. So the standard Mortar sentry is available at level 8, will cost you 7,000 requisition slips, has a 180-second cooldown, and is a 5-button input. The EMS Mortar turret is at level 20, will cost you 8,000 requisition slips, also 180-second cooldown, and also a 5-button input. So both of these are kind of similar, and they are unique amongst the other turrets, since these ones don't really need a direct line of sight to be shooting at something. They can lob up and over, which makes them really, really good on defensive missions in particular, where you don't really have to move around a whole lot and enemies are constantly coming towards you. That way they can kind of just get their range and keep shooting. Whenever you have to advance with the mortars is when it gets really awkward, because the regular mortar has a very high chance of friendly fire. The EMS one still has a high chance of friendly fire, but it doesn't do damage to you. It just slows you down, which is more annoying than anything and can potentially get you killed, but it could also potentially save you if you're getting swarmed by smaller enemies. So for an overall rating for these, I would say the regular Mortar Sentry is probably a C tier across across the board, it's more awkward than I think that it's worth, because it can do a lot of damage. That's the one real big advantage of this, and if you put it in a safe location where enemies can't easily attack it, it can clear up just about anything, which is really nice. The main problem with that, though, is if enemies do start getting close to you or your teammates, you're probably going to incur a lot of friendly fire, which is really bad. And if you put it out in the open, it's probably going to get destroyed and not really do a whole lot. The main exception being like defense missions where you can set these up and just kind of forget about it, in which case then the mortar's really good. The MS mortar I would say is B tier across the board because you don't have to worry about that friendly fire. It can still be kind of awkward, but it is still really good for advancing with, assuming that it's actually attacking the enemies. Once again, if a whole bunch of enemies swarm you, this can be a little bit awkward, especially if there's ranged enemies thrown in there too, because you might not be able to get away from them. But I would say the EMS turret is a whole lot more forgiving than the regular mortar turret. And that'll do it for the turrets. Overall, turrets are pretty cool. Again, I don't really use them all that much myself. I prefer some of the other stratagems over them, but they can be really good, especially in certain situations. I do really like the rocket turret. That one is really good. So tell me your thoughts on these turrets. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so very much for watching it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.